I want to tell you about a blade that killed gods, not a weapon, but a curse. Seared into its edge. Kratos carried her ashes to the iron flats, a father's plea to mend what the Nornir could not. The dwarves' rage became the axe's hunger. A whispered in its father's steel the promising vengeance. Axe's hunger winter breathes, the god-killer stirs. What price did the dwarves pay to make a god bleed? What if the Leviathan Axe wasn't a weapon but a prison for Brok and Sindri's souls, a cursed conduit for grief, not vengeance? The answer lies in Dwarven blood, their rage, their final act of creation. They didn't forge a blade, they forged a tomb. Steel seethed with the weight of 1,000 buried winters. Each swing carried the echo of a brother's death, a father's, a son's. Odin's hand had closed the anvil's final hammer strike. The god-killer was never meant to slay gods, it was a pyre for the living. What price? Their very breath, their names, their place among the stars. The axe did not hunger, it wept. The axe wept, but the dwarves laugh at us, sound like stone splitting. Brok's hammer fell, each strike a dirge for his brother, whose bones Odin had shattered. Sindri's breath curled in the forge's heat, a ghost of the frost that had claimed Fae. Kratos watched, his own grief a silent companion. The Leviathan Axe was not born of fire alone. It drank the memory of a child's last gasp, the way Faye's hand had gone limp in his, her jot on blood freezing as winter's breath swept the 9 realms. The forges of Brok and Sindri were catacombs of memory, hammers sang hymns to dead kin. Bellows hissed like the wind that had howled through the prologue snow. When Kratos offered his rage, the dwarves gave him something darker, a blade steeped in their unburied sorrow. Its edge carried Brok's vengeance, the rage of a craftsman who had watched his life's work eyes song-crushed by an allfather's fist. The axe's haft, carved with runes of mourning, pulsed with the weight of 1,000 unsung elegies. Atreus, young and uncomprehending, had scattered Faye's ashes into a gale. The wind had swallowed them just as the dwarves swallowed their grief, birthing a weapon that did not hunger but yearned to rend, to unmake, to answer the void left by loss. When Brok died, his final strike drove the axe deeper into the anvil, as if the metal itself could bear the burden of his pain. What is a god-killer but a vessel for the grief it cannot erase? The Leviathan Axe was no tool. It was a pact, the dwarves' anguish, Kratos' guilt, Faye's frozen whisper, all bound in a blade that would never know rest. And when it struck, it did not merely kill, it remembered asterisk. The hammer fell, Brok's skull split against the anvil. Odin's shadow had shaped that blow, threading fate's thread through a god's hand. Sindri's forge roared, not with flame but with a scream that cracked the mountain. He did not weep. Dwarven steel does not bend to sorrow and lead to vengeance. The Leviathan Axe was not forged, it erupted asterisk. Mimir's well had given Odin wisdom, but Sindri's anvil gave something darker, a conduit for rage untempered by reason. Brok's last breath, still hot with unspoken words, became the axe's edge. Every strike carried the weight of a brother's silence. Every whisper of its blade hummed with a promise, gods bleed asterisk. Odin's machinations had turned Ragnarok into a funeral pyre. Brok, the smith who could craft constellations into iron, died nameless a pawn, in a war he did not wage. Sindri, exiled to a world that forgot his face, poured his grief into the axe's core. The Leviathan did not need a wielder. It required one. A host for the dwarves' curse, their love for Brok twisted into a hunger that could split worlds. What is a weapon but a wound made permanent? The axe's power was never in its design. It was in the memory of Brok's death, in the fury that made Sindri's hands steady as he etched Odin's name into the blade's soul. The Leviathan did not kill gods, it exorcised them. A ritual of retribution, forged in the same fire that consumed a brother's life. And still the axe waits, not for a battle, for a god. For the echo of a hammer's fatal strike to find its answer in blood. Kratos' hand closes on the axe, the weight is familiar, the hunger beneath it is not. Atreus stands at the edge of the realm between. A name flickers in the mist. Loki. He steps forward. The axe was never meant to kill a god. It was made to carry a god's death. Brok and Sindri knew this. They had felt it in the hammer's shatter, in the silence after their brother's breath left his body. Odin's shadow had passed over Brok like a blade. Sindri watched, he said nothing. The forge's fire turned their grief to iron. They did not craft a weapon, they bound a wound that bled rage. Kratos swings, the axe remembers, it does not cut. It unmakes asterisk. The god's blood is the dwarves' blood, the god's death is their vengeance. Atreus learns this too late. The axe's whisper is his father's voice, its hunger is his own, he chooses to listen. Sindri's grief outlived Brok's, it outlives all things. He sees Kratos again, sees the axe's glow, and turns away. His hammer falls, not in rage, in surrender. The Leviathan Axe is no tool. It is a pact, a chain of choices. Kratos chose to carry it. Atreus chose to become its shadow, and Brok and Sindri. They chose to die with their brothers' names on their lips, their souls in the blade. They're cursed to watch every swing, every god's fall, every drop of blood that is not theirs. The storm waits, the axe waits. And the dwarves wait not for a god, for the hands that hold the axe to break, like hammers, like hearts. But the cost, not blood, the brothers' grief, raw and unburied, became the axe's sinew, every hammer stroke a scream, every scream a shackle. The god-killer did not slay Odin, it unraveled the brother who forged it. Brok's shattered hand was the first wound, Sindri's silent scream the second. The axe feeds on what it was made with, and the dwarves, they were the meal. The forge's fire never truly died. Brok's hammer fell silent, but his fury roared on, bound in every swing of the axe. Sindri, hollow-eyed, watched his brother's soul fracture then shatter. The blade did not kill gods, it unraveled them, fueled by the dwarves' anguish. Kratos reaped vengeance. The pantheon burned, mortals drowned in the fallout. Cities crumbled as Aesir and Vanir turned on each other, their wars mirroring the axe's violent birth. Sindri vanished into mountain shadows, cursing Kratos' name. His grief, once shared, now festered alone. Brok's last breath became the axe's first scream. Odin's hand in the betrayal remained unspoken, but the Nornir wove it into fate. A god's death, a dwarf's life, a ledger of debts unpaid. The axe's edge holds no mercy, it never has. Every strike whispers Brok's unburied rage, Sindri's silent plea. What is a weapon forged of sorrow if not a tomb? The Leviathan Axe does not wield power. It is power, raw, grieving, immortal. And in its shadow, the cost of vengeance stretches longer than any god's reign. The dwarves did not craft a weapon. They bound their broken hearts into a blade. Brok's hammer fell not for glory, but to silence a grief that outlived stone. Sindri's fire did not forge metal, it exorcised memory. Every rune on the Leviathan Axe hums with the weight of a son lost, a brother's vow, a god's cruelty. What they shaped was no tool, it was a wound made permanent. Kratos the Spartan grasped this wound. He did not kill Odin. He became his successor. The axe's whispers are not commands. They are echoes of Brok's final breath, of Sindri's silent rage, of a cycle older than Valhalla. Each swing carves new scars into its soul, and each scar feeds the hunger. The wanderer is no hero. He is a vessel, a bridge between mortal and divine, his flesh a canvas for dwarven vengeance. His sons see his face. They do not know the man beneath. Atreus walks this shadow, born of grief, raised by ghosts. Loki's blood thrums in his veins, but Kratos' shadow defines his steps. A boy becomes a trickster, a prince, a storm. His duality is no accident, it is the price of inheritance. The axe's curse does not end with its maker, it migrates, it evolves. It becomes. Brok and Sindri sought closure, they found immortality. Their rage, once personal, now pulses through a god-killer's bones. Kratos' transformation is their legacy. A father's wrath reforged as a son's burden, the axe does not wield power. It is power, raw, grieving, immortal. And in its shadow, the cost of vengeance stretches longer than any god's reign. The dwarves exorcised their sorrow, they did not banish it. They named it, and it grew fangs. The forge's embers have long since died. Sindri's hammer rests where Brok's hand last gripped it. The Leviathan Axe, once seething, now hangs motionless, its fury spent or buried. Kratos carries its weight, but the true burden lies in the silence between them. A pact shattered, a son's name spoken then unsaid. The dwarves' grief did not fade, it calcified. Brok's final breath, stolen by Odin's blade, became the axe's keel. Sindri's rage, no longer a flame, now a glacier. The weapon's power was never in its edge. It was in the void, it carved a hollow where two hearts bled into the steel. Kratos walks the realms, but the axe does not sleep. It watches, it waits, its creator's sorrow, forged into law, binds it to the world. A god killer, no, a grief keeper. A monument to what cannot be unmade. Atreus is gone, Brok is gone. Only the axe remains, its silence louder than any storm. And in that silence the dwarves' curse thrives, unspoken, unyielding, alive. Kratos stands beside Zeus, a shadow and a storm. Atreus, beside Baldur, carries two ghosts in his hands. Odin, beside Tyr, trades loyalty for a throne. The Leviathan Axe does not choose sides, it dissects them. Brok and Sindri did not craft a weapon. They forged a wound, a channel for grief to blade into godflesh. Every rune on its haft is a scream, every dent in its edge, a debt unpaid. The dwarves knew to kill a god is to become one's tomb. Odin's blade took Brok's life, Kratos' wars took his purpose. What remains is a relic that feeds on the fury of its makers. The same fire that shaped Gungnir and Mjolnir now twists, unbound. A hammer once raised to build becomes a spade dug into divine soil. Atreus grips the axe, not as heir, not as avenger, but as witness. Kratos' lesson echoes, vengeance is a mirror, it shows your face, not the monsters. The dwarves' rage forged a god-killer but also a prison. For every soul it devours, it carves their names deeper into its steel. What is vengeance if not a covenant? Brok and Sindra's curse thrives not in the axe's bite, but in its silence. A silence that outlives gods, a silence that Atreus must now carry forward or broken. The mirror does not judge, it only reflects. And in its cold eye, all legacies collapse to ash. The axe's glow is no mere forged fire. It hums with the weight of 1,000 buried screams. Brok and Sindri did not weld metal, they bound their brother's shattered soul to the anvil, hammering grief into a blade that could sever divine flesh. Odin's spear took Brok's life, Sindri's hands shaped its requiem. The Leviathan Axe's twin edges cut both ways, a god's throat, a dwarf's hope. Its pommel cradles Brok's rage, its haft Sindri's vow. When the final strike fell, it was not vengeance that quaked the 9 realms but the echo of a people's sorrow, too vast to bury. In the Ragnarok twilight, Sindri turns from Kratos and Atreus, the axe's light dimming in his grip. He knows now what the forge could not unmake, a weapon is but a vessel. The true horror lies in what the vessel carries. The dwarves exiled their pain into steel, the steel exiled them in return. No god, no killer, no heir can unspool this thread. The Leviathan Axe glows, it glows, it glows, a tomb, a trigger, a grief that outlives the grieving. What other gods burned in the forge of mortal sorrow? Brok and Sindri didn't craft a weapon, they carved a channel for a dynasty's wrath. Each strike of the Leviathan Axe echoed their kin's screams. Odin's hand, unseen, fed that fire. Next, the god of